إلى من يجمع المال ويلقى فيه أهوالا. سنون العمر ماضية وكأس الموت قد سالا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آل Muhammad. Dear beloved viewers, I welcome you with an Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are in this program of wealth from an Islamic perspective, and in the previous program we introduced what wealth means, the importance of wealth, and the risks associated with wealth, among others. In today's program, insha'Allah ta'ala, we are going to look at the first sphere on wealth, which is wealth generation, or sometimes is referred to as wealth acquisition, and it is well known in the field of wealth management as wealth creation. So we are going to start with what wealth creation means. Dear beloved viewers, wealth creation means how you go about acquiring income for your livelihood. Islam has a broad guideline guiding Muslims on how to acquire income or their livelihood. Islam requires us to strive, to struggle, to earn the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He has placed them on the land and the seas and other places. It is even considered in Islam that pursuing wealth is a form of jihad, is a form of struggle. Now, a Muslim, when he goes out to pursue income, he has to go out and achieve that particular aim with a purpose. And one of the purpose that a Muslim should aim at for acquiring income is, number one, to be able to support his life, to be able to meet the basic necessities of life, the likes of expenses of food, shelter, medication, educations, among others. Another aim that we are to pursue income for is to be able to perform devotional acts. As we know, in Islam there are certain acts of worship beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which requires you to spend your time and your money and your wealth. The likes of going to Hajj or performing Umrah, it requires your nafs, yourself, your time, but also it requires financial resources to be able to pay for the journey. Another devotional acts beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping the less fortunate in our society, to be able to help other people for either getting food to eat or clothes or other basic necessities of life. We need to first acquire, pursue income generating activities to get the income to be able to support others, to spend on sadaqah or to spend on zakat. Another devotional acts of worship that is supported by wealth is construction of masajid. Masajid are referred to as the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I believe every Muslim would like at his lifetime to have adequate wealth or adequate income that he can be able to either build a masjid or be able to meet the expenses of running a masjid. Again, as you know, our country is vast, it's too big, and there are places there are no water. And the only way to be able to, or the easiest way to be able to provide some villages with water, clean water, is through constructing a borehole. And doing that requires an income. So assisting people with this precious resource, water, you have to first engage in income generating activities that can give you an income to meet your basic necessities of life and be able to support others. The orphans, the widows, elders, and others might be requiring your and my support. And to be able to support them, we need to have or to pursue wealth, or to pursue or to engage in income generating activities. More importantly, this faith, this religion requires propagation. Having a station like Horizon TV requires a lot of financial resources and manpower resources. We can only be able to do that if we will be able to pursue or to engage in economic activities that generates a lot of income to be able to meet an expenses that can support running of a television station like this one, among others, for purpose of spreading the good message of Islam and clarifying misconceptions about Islam. And a third aim for a Muslim to have when he pursues wealth is in order to safeguard himself or herself from the tribulation of poverty. Poverty is quite a challenge, and it is quite widespread, and it is quite an ugly reality. And it puts a believer in a very tricky situation, like begging, or like lying, or like unfulfilling of promises. Now, some people beg, and begging really takes away a portion of someone's reputation. To be able to avoid this kind of scenario, a Muslim has been enjoined and guided and directed to engage in economic activities so as to preserve his reputation and that of his families and his children and his relatives and so on. So we are, as a Muslim, are required by our faith to engage in economic activities in order to safeguard ourselves from the fitna of al-faqr, fitna of poverty, of which we know from various dua of the Prophet ﷺ. One of them was he used to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to safeguard him from poverty. So we as a Muslim as well have to not to be very much worried about poverty, but to do all that we can to be able to live a honorable life apart from the difficulties and avoid tribulations that are coming out of poverty. So in Islam, wealth generation must be conducted according to Sharia rules and ethical norms. We will shortly, insha'Allah ta'ala, explain what are these Islamic principles that we as Muslims have to abide by when we go to pursue or acquire income or livelihood. We need to take note here that we Muslims are very different with other mainstream or other people when it comes to acquiring wealth. Our philosophy in acquiring wealth, number one, we pursue wealth according to the requirements of Sharia. The second rule here, we pursue wealth in moderation. We know that we have rights towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we also have rights to fulfill towards other people. When we pursue wealth or income, we must ensure we don't miss fulfilling the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is, you can't have an excuse of you working to earn an income and the prayer time is passing. You can't have an excuse of working and you leave fasting. You can't have an excuse of being engaged in business trips around the world and you leave Hajj while you have the means to fulfill Hajj. So pursuing wealth has to be done in moderation without compromising our ability or your ability to fulfill rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rights of creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like our families. Our families also requires our time. You can't be a 24-hour person working day and night while your wife has rights over you, your kids have rights over you, your parents have rights over you, your neighbors have rights over you. So you should balance in these pursuits. We are also different with other people in the sense that other people, when they go to pursue wealth, they adopt these so-called Jesuit principle. And if you wonder what a Jesuit principle means, it says that you can go and do everything, anything, and seek forgiveness later. That is so-called Jesuit's principle, that you go do whatever you can, do anything, and then later on, you will seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not the mentality of a Muslim. A Muslim has to do right from the beginning. He has to avoid committing sins in the pursuit of wealth so that he doesn't end up putting himself in uncertain condition of seeking forgiveness while he might not know whether he is going to be forgiven or not. It's better to avoid sin rather than committing them and then just hoping to be forgiven. A Muslim is not following this Jesuit's principle. He does right from the beginning. And in case he does mistakes out of ignorance or negligence, he will seek forgiveness immediately. A Muslim also is not guided by the Freemasons' principle, which says that ends justify the means, that you can pursue any methods of acquiring wealth and income, because any method, provided it gives you the income, then that is a good method. That is Freemasons' principle. A Muslim is not like that either. He has to ensure his means, his methods of acquiring income are halal, are permissible, and he leaves all those which are haram methods or prohibited methods of income generation. That is very important to bear in mind. Now, let me share with you very briefly Quranic verses and some hadith that encourage us to pursue wealth. The first hadith, the first ayah that encourages us to pursue wealth is from Surah Al-Mulk. In this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور. In this verse, very briefly, Allah instructs us to go outside to the land to seek sustenance, to seek rizq, which He has provided in this vast universe. And always bear in mind that we will be presented before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer to Him on how we have gone about seeking these bounties and how we have utilized these bounties. Dear beloved viewer, we will take a short break and remind you when we come back another verse which also encourages us to go out and pursue bounties of Allah, livelihood, and earn an income. Please don't go away.
سنون العمر ماضية وكأس الموت قد سالت